and we're 100% black owned.
All right, welcome back to Durban. And of course, as you know, we are here for the IMO event, and it's under the auspices of the South African Transport Ministry. And it's been very interesting, you know, getting to learn, getting to know about our maritime industry, where we're lagging behind, and we are quite a bit behind. But you know what? I think the heads are being put together, and we are starting to see those inroads being made. I think I was reading something yesterday where it said that in 2007 we had no South African vessels registered, and now we're talking about, as we heard from Paul in our earlier interview, his company alone has 10. So that registry is building up, but it's building up slowly. We need to speed it up. But of course, a lot of representation here this morning, and I am now, and I need to read this because our next guest is Prashin Maharaj, and here's his title: President of Maritime Industry Development Task Force Network, as well as the President of the Durban Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Prashin, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Yeah, good morning, Sakina, and good morning to the listeners.
So I think after what the KZN province and eThekwini in particular has been through with the uprisings that we saw, and then of course the floods later on, it's been a tough time for the city.
Yeah, certainly the city has gone through an immensely tough time. In fact, earlier this week when I was doing other interviews, I said this economy is literally hanging by a thread. And, you know, we need some urgent intervention to ensure that we can recover and revive from, it was a looting and rioting, it was a pandemic, it was a cyber attack on the port system in addition to the floods. And right now we're also having a strike in the harbor. So these are very adverse conditions in which we are trading in right now.
And speaking of the Transnet strike, so here we have 178 member states represented coming to this parallel event. And you can't even take your visitors to the port.
Yeah, that's very sad, because we were really hoping to showcase to the world our world-class port system. You know, the port of Durban was one of the most vibrant ports not only in Africa but the southern hemisphere, and it has the ability to re-establish itself as Africa's premier port. But unfortunately, the strike in the worst possible time is really suppressing the growth of it. You know, we estimate this strike will cost us about R1 billion a day.
R1 billion a day?
Yes.
Which of course we can ill afford, not only as eThekwini and, you know, the province of KZN, but as South Africa as a whole, because it has a knock-on effect.
Well, 66% of all containers coming to the port of Durban is intended for the whole of South Africa and Southern Africa. So it has this knock-on effect which causes further economic suppression in a very depressed state.
But how do we deal with all of this before we even get into, you know, further maritime discussion? Just looking at some of the conditions that, for example, your Transnet employees are complaining about. I'm sure you would have some thoughts, you know, as the president of the Chamber of Commerce and Industry, on how we can better deal with some of these labor-related issues.
So, Sakina, we are very, very sensitive to the plight of workers, especially when the cost of living is increasing so much. But I think we, as a country, we need to be sensitive to the economic conditions. So for me, what I would say, all economic role players, whether it's labor, whether it's government, whether it's business, civil society, we need to have this patriotic mindset and put the country first and put individual interests second. I do understand that workers need a living wage, workers need some sort of decent increase in wages, but surely we can do it through processes other than striking, so we don't stop the economy. So we engage, we negotiate. South Africans are very good at engaging and negotiating. So we should really, and in Asia they do that a lot. They very rarely go on a strike. They carry on negotiating, and for me, I think through the legal channels available, we should engage and negotiate and come to an amicable agreement.
And of course, we hope that happens sooner rather than later. But you were telling me about something quite interesting
Yes.
earlier on about a vessel that is being built. And, you know, I've been talking about the registry that is quite low for South Africa, given who we are, where we are, what we have in terms of not just coastline,
Yes.
but our own mineral riches in this
Yes,
country.
yes.
We should be doing a lot better. But you were telling me about a very exciting development.
Yeah, so you know, in South Africa we have this thing called Operation Pakisa. It's the ocean economy, fast tracking of the development of the ocean economy. So as part of that, the government designated shipbuilding. For all ships to be bought or owned by government must be built in South Africa. And as a result, my company, Sandok Oslo Shipyard, was awarded a contract by the South African Navy to build a hydrographic survey vessel. It's currently the largest, most complex hydrographic survey vessel being built in the world right now. And it's been built by 100% South African-owned company and 100% black-owned South African company. And that's really should be the crowning jewel of the South African maritime industry. And once again, it's a vessel we should have showcased to the 170 odd delegates that are visiting here, but unfortunately port access is very limited now.
And that's something that we need to talk about.
Yes.
But great to have you with us,
Thank you,
Prashin
Sakina.
Maharaj. Thank you so much, President of the Durban Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and also President of Maritime Industry Development Task Force Network.